So, you want to be a Paladin? Well, you've come to the right place. In today's video, we're going to do 1 to 90 every Paladin ability. I've got the job guide up on the left here. I've got the live gameplay on the right. We're going to go look at stuff. We're also going to do a rotation at the end to show you what a typical rotation for Paladin will look like. And overall, just to find out what Paladin's about. So sit back and grab a brew, because that's what we're going to do today. So, let's get straight into it. First skill. Fast Blade. So Fast Blade is going to start off most of your abilities at the end game. So getting it early on is quite good. Now the cool thing is at level 2 you get Fight or Flight. Now Fight or Flight is your damage steroid. So practice doing a Fast Blade, waiting a bit and then hitting Fight or Flight. Wait for your GCD. When this little GCD goes around on my hotbar, wait for it to hit the second half, then hit Fight or Flight, because that's what you're going to be doing in the endgame openers and rotations. So it's a good habit to build early. So at level 2, you get your Fast Blade and you get your Fight or Flight damage steroid. At level 4, you get your second part of your combo. So if I hit a Fast Blade, I have number 4 on my hotboard lighting up. That is a Riot Blade. So that's going to lead into your two kind of main combos, which is Goring Blade and Royal Authority. They have different names as they level up, but eventually they do convert to those names. So one of your main gateways into damage is going to be to go in and Fast Blade, Riot Blade, and then you're going to have more skills opened up for that. So at level 4, you're going to be able to do most of your combo, and you're going to have some buff there as well. Level 6, you get your first AoE, so let's scroll down here. Yeah, level 6, first AoE, and that is the Total Eclipse. So that is just the start of your AoE combo that kind of goes around in a combo. Good old Jaffa Cake Total Eclipse style. It's cool, it's okay, it hits everything around you. You want to do it when you've got a bunch of mobs around you. You don't want to go up to a single target mob and do that. You want to have a few mobs to go there with it. It's got about a 5 yards range according to the job website. So most mobs will be grouped up on you anyway, which will be good. Next skill. Okay, next skill, Shield Bash. So Shield Bash is a stun. It can only be done on the GCD. So what I mean by that is if I choose to Shield Bash, I can't use any of my other GCDs until that is over. Now this used to be really good back in the day, but in current standards, most people don't do it because you're wasting a GCD, and you have an ability called Low Blow, which is going to stun anyway, which is off the global cooldown. So very niche ability, not used that much. In fact, I don't even have it on my hotbar. I put it on for this video. So early on, have a play with it, but eventually get it out of your system, because it's not something that you're going to be using in the grand scheme of things. Next is your tank stance. So if I hit F1, I go into my tank stance. That basically means I generate much more aggro. You keep this on most of the time. You only would really ever turn it off in very select situations, such as raid content. But if you're just starting the game and you're just starting Paladin, you can keep this Iron Will on. That will ensure that anything you do, it puts a threat modifier on all of your skills. Anything you do, you'll be able to generate some aggro. Next is another core ability, so Shield Lob. You will also start a lot of fights that way. It's very common to Shield Lob and then run in and start attacking. Shield Lob's really good as well for when you're running away from a mob and you want to kite it, like so. But yeah, this again is a core ability. Like most tanks, you'll be using it to initiate or pull mobs into what you want to do. Rage of Halone. So my Rage of Halone is going to look a little bit different. Mine is going to be called Royal Authority, but eventually Rage of Halone does upgrade to a Royal Authority. So I'll show you what that looks like. So for me, it's going to look a little bit like this. Starting off, yours is going to might look a little bit differently, but it does eventually turn into that ability, and you'll be able to see that on some of the traits when we go through the traits on the job page. you'll see that a lot of skills to reduce button blow in Final Fantasy, they do convert the skills on the fly. So Rage of Halone will be something that you can use there as well. But we'll double check it anyway when we go along. Spirits Within, mine is called Expiacion. Spirits Within eventually turns into Expiacion, or whatever it's called. It's an off global, so you can hit an ability, then hit your global in between it, and then go into something else. So you'll be you'll be sometimes double weaving that, but you'll be using it mostly between abilities, especially under Fight or Flight. So for now, it's called Spirits Within. It's about level 30. You will eventually upgrade it. Same with Sheltron. So Sheltron on its own upgrades to Holy Sheltron later on in the game. So if I hit this, your animation will look slightly different because you'll have the base version, and that's going to help you block incoming attacks at a cost of 50 gauge for about 6 seconds. So it's a good sort of, it's a good one to have up for big tank busters, but also in between damage as well. A nice little shield ability. Next one is Sentinel. Sentinel is your kind of beefy cooldown. So you hit that, you now have less, well, 30% mitigation for the 15 seconds. That's on a 2-minute timer as well, so that's pretty good. Next one you have is Prominence. So Prominence is a follow-up to Total Eclipse that you get early on. So here's Total Eclipse. Now Prominence will light up, and you jump in the air and you give somebody a haircut, essentially. So this is one of the main AoE rotations you will use. You will kind of group up mobs, boom, get them in, rinse and repeat until the mob pack is dead. Again, don't use it on a single target, wait to have stuff grouped up. As with a lot of these, you will have class quests and job quests to unlock them. I'm not going to cover what they are, but you can find them. Oops, sorry, you can find them in the job guide as you're going along. Next one is cover. Unfortunately, cover has gotten very weak nowadays. So you need a player. It will put a shield around them and a tether, and it will take all the damage intended for them. Now, this isn't used that much nowadays, but if you see an ally in trouble and you have the gauge for it, you can click on them and choose to cover. I find Holy Sheltron much more useful. Not really using cover much nowadays. Might change in the future, but again, its ability you're not going to use that much, unfortunately. So it's fun to do now and then in dungeons. Cover your friend, let them take no damage. You used to be able to also cover and use knockback skills to prevent knockback on the target. But yeah, have fun with it, not a core skill. Next one is a core skill, Circle of Scorn. So that's this little cool skill. It's an AoE, it's an off global cooldown. It affects people with damage, but also does a dot for 30 seconds. So you'll often be using this with your AoE rotation in between it, but because it is free, it's off global, you'll be using it you know, under your Fight or Flight and under your combos in general. So you will be using that one quite a lot. Next one is really good ability. It's your invul. So every class has an invul. Paladin's is called Hallowed Ground. So this makes you take no damage for 10 seconds. So now I have my Hallowed Ground buff. Really good, used quite a lot to kind of nullify very complex mechanics where you might take a lot of damage. It's also good because you can do, if you're doing Paladin in solo content, instead of doing the hard dodges for a certain phase, you could choose to use Hallowed Ground, and then you would basically not take any damage, and you could kind of cheese your way through it that way. It's quite a long cooldown, so you generally get one of them, maybe two of them a fight. Really depends on what you're doing. But in a dungeon, probably getting one of them a dungeon. So it's a good oh shit button, but in bosses, it's also very good as well. Goring Blade is the first of two regarding your combo enders. So with your Fast Blade and your Riot Blade, you'll be getting something called Goring Blade. So Goring Blade will place a dot on the enemy, and that dot will do a bunch of damage over time. Specifics of that damage on the job guide say that, you know, you're getting a potency of about 65 on the dot. For the combo potency of Riot Blade, 250. Again, I'm more of a visual person. A good thing you can do is to just put your Riot Blade and your Goring Blade up, just step away from the boss and see how many ticks and what the ticks are doing. You know, that's a good visual way to see what's going on. This is one of your core abilities. You're going to be doing this a lot along with Royal Authority. So you'll be doing your Goring Blade and you'll cycle through your rotation and you'll be refreshing your Goring Blade when it's about to go down. Next one's Divine Veil, very core skill. So you pop your Divine Veil. It's not active until you receive a heal. Now, Paladins can heal themselves, which is cool. So if I do a sneak peek and quickly heal myself, my Divine Veil will go out. Now notice it doesn't go on myself. Divine Veil goes on other players. It does not go on yourself. You often use this for big sort of areas of damage to try and pad out that damage as well. So once you get healed, the barrier around you is cast around everybody within 15 yards, lasts for 30 seconds, and it prevents damage up to about 10% of your max health. So I'm sitting at about 80.5k health at the moment, so that's a pretty decent shield in the grand scheme of things. You can also see that shield pop up on people's health bars as well in a party. So again, very core skill. Just if you are playing with people you know, let them know you've popped it. If not, maybe try and pop it yourself. But in raid content, we're always calling out Divine Veil's up, pop it please, and so on. Next one is a skill that's not used too much, but it can be if you really want to play a conservative play style. So you have a self-heal. That can go on you, it can go on other players. It can also be done as part of your Requiescat combo, which we'll go on to in a moment. Not used that much because there is a damage version of it, which we'll get onto in a minute, called Holy Spirit. So most people will do a Holy Spirit as opposed to a Clemency. But Clemency can kind of help in areas where you might be on your last stand as a party, surviving, any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, most people won't use it in endgame content, but it's always there as a good option. Next ability is Royal Authority. So Royal Authority is the next ability that you have based on that sort of a Riot Blade combo. So if I Fast Blade, Riot Blade, if let's say I have my Goring Blade up, pretend it's up, I would then choose to do a Royal Authority instead. So a lot of your rotation will be going between Goring Blade and Royal Authority. You'll also notice Royal Authority grants me 3 stacks of Sword Oath. Eventually that's going to lead you into having 3 stacks of this Atonement buff. We'll get onto that more later, but that lets you spend some extra attacks every time you pop a Royal Authority. Next ability is another sort of mitigation ability, so Intervention. I have a macro for it here. So my macro will automatically put Intervention on a focus target. It's basically a nice sort of off-tank sort of ability. So if you're off-tanking and somebody else is main tanking, you can pop this on them. It will reduce their incoming damage by about 10%. It's got about an 8-second duration, and it does increase if you have skills up, but that's more of an advanced thing. So you can have like Rampart up, for example, and pop it, and it'll give you a bit more of a shield. But out of the bag, just throwing it on someone will do in most cases in the grand scheme of things. This does give a lot of other things. I do recommend looking at the guide for it, but it will also take away 50 of your oath gauge as well. Again, this is something, if you're playing, throw it on a friend, throw it on a tank. You're going to be taking most of the damage most of the time, so you're only going to really be throwing it on another tank, in my experience, but you never know, it's a good one to have. So I have mine here as a macro, just because it's easier for me to do that and not click on somebody. So yeah. Next one, Holy Spirit. So the reason most people don't use Clemency is because Holy Spirit is the damage version of Clemency. And Final Fantasy is all about damage in terms of how the community sees the end game. So Holy Spirit is going to be the main thing you're using. But again, it really depends on the situation. But Holy Spirit, 99% of the time is what I'd say. Next thing you get is Requiescat or Requiescat. I call it Requiescat. This is a ace ability. It's one of your core abilities moving forward. So you kind of put your sword up, hit the boss, but then you get 5 stacks of this Requiescat. And that can be spent on a Holy Spirit, which makes it instant cast, or a Clemency, or a Holy Spirit, or a Clemency. Now I'm going to get on to what you use with your last stack later on, which is a really cool combo. But earlier on, you're going to be spending those stacks on a Holy Spirit. It makes them instant cast, which is awesome because as a Paladin, you can run around casting those Holy Spirits, and you're only really losing a tiny bit of auto attack uptime. You're not losing that much. Next one is Passage of Arms. So that's this ability. You only really use this in between phases. So the boss has jumped away, the boss is getting ready to do a big attack. Put up your Passage of Arms. Put your players have to stand behind it to get the mitigation, and anyone that stands in that will have a block rate of 100%. Well, no, sorry, you will have a block rate of 100%, but the people behind you will only suffer 85% of all of the damage inflicted. So you can kind of be cheeky with it, and if you're using it in normal content, you can turn it on for like a half a second and turn it off and get the block, but most of the time you're going to be using this in between phases. Next one is Holy Spirit, Holy Circle. So Holy Circle is an AoE version of Holy Spirit. So where you may have 1 or 2 targets, it's usually better to Holy Spirit. Once you start to get above 3 or 4 targets, it's actually better to AoE. And that's a lot of things in FF. Once you have 3 or more targets, and again, always check a specific advanced guide or anything like that if you're unsure. Do the potency math. But this will give 130 for all nearby enemies, whereas Holy Spirit will give 270. So if you do the math on that, after 3 targets, it's better to do Holy Circle. Again, this is an AoE ability to be used in between your Prominence when you have mana. It also works with the Requiescat. So if I Requiescat and then I can pop up instant AoE 5 times. Eventually this will be 4 times because the rotation changes a bit. But yeah, you're getting a lot of versatility to the Paladin with this, which is quite nice. And again, you can do it from a ranged, which is awesome. Next ability. So let's have a look. Next ability is Intervene, Gap Closer. You get 2 charges. You use them in between attacks because they're off global. You can also use them to get to places a bit quicker. Most of the time you will pull with a shield lob, and you will be generally saving your intervenes in between your fight or flights as well. But yeah, it's a gap closer essentially. Atonement is activated whenever you drop a royal authority. So notice how my atonement is not lighting up. As soon as I drop a royal authority, I now have 3 stacks, boom boom, of these to use. This gives me back 400 mana each time. Now eventually you will be sacrificing one of these atonements to line up the Paladin rotation, but as you're leveling up, don't worry about it. Just use those atonements up and you'll be fine. I'm a full believer of just kind of playing, doing a general rotation up to level sort of 90. Then once you get level 90, you start to adjust that rotation for what you want to do. That's my main sort of thought process behind it, at least. So yeah, that's activated after every royal authority. So what's the next one? So the next one is Confiteor. So Confiteor again is, I'd say it's like a bit of an AoE. So it can do, I think it's 900 potency to anyone around it. Restores your own health. It is activated off of a Requiescat. So as soon as I hit that ability, it lights up. Now this is the reason why later on, so once you start getting above level 80, you don't use all 5 of these. So you use all 4 of them. You save 1, and then your Confiteor will take you into a new combo. Now I'm going to hold back on that new combo for now because that's a combo you get later on, but we'll cover what that combo looks like, and it's insane. It's one of the best looking rotations that you can do from afar or up close that I have seen. So that's why you don't spend the 4. Holy Sheltron, that's upgraded from Sheltron, so that's what I have there. Also gives you a lot of sub buffs as well, such as Knight's Resolve, Knight's Benediction, giving you a bit of a cure here, a bit of a cure there. It's better to sort of read into these, but you know, pop them, have a look at the buffs you get at the top as well, and what you're getting from them. That upgrades from Sheltron. Same with Spirits Within. So level 86, your Spirits Within will turn into I can never say this name, so let's just call it Expiacion or something. So you can put the same button wherever you want, it automatically updates, and that becomes much more of a stronger version. Next, we're at the end, level 90. So as I'm scrolling down here, you see Blade of Faith, Blade of Truth, Blade of Valor. That is your level 90 final combo after you go into a Confiteor. So you'll see a lot of this in the main rotation when we cover it. But here's what you do. You pop your Requiescat at some point. You run around, and you can stay up close as well, but you do your 4 Holy Spirits. And you initiate a Confiteor, and this Confiteor will turn into a new combo. So I'm going to hit Confiteor. Boom. I now get Blade of Faith. Boom. I now get Blade of Truth. Boom. I now get Blade of Valor. Boom. Pretty insane rotation, right? And Blade of Valor is leaving a dot on the boss as well. This also hits mobs around it, so it's a pretty juicy ability. One of the better looking abilities, honestly, that a lot of the tanks have. So, and again, you can cast it from range, which is awesome. Now that convenes 1 to 90. I want to move on to role skills. Role skills are the same for every tank. So if you've watched one of these videos before, if you watch my warrior one, it's going to be pretty much the same. So we'll go quickly through this. Rampart, 20 second reduced by 20 second damage. Low blow, off global stun. That's the reason we don't use shield bash. So I actually don't have shield bash on my bar when I play Paladin because low blow is off global. Provoke, very cool, puts you +1 on the aggro, and a little bit more as well, and lets you tank swap essentially. It can also be good to grab aggro off mobs if it runs off to somebody, something like that. Interject is a silence. You can tell when you can silence a mob because their cast bar will glow in red. It's a very obvious glow. Reprisal is core. It's got a little bit of range to it, but it will basically reduce damage by 10%. A very core ability to use in raids and dungeons because you've got a bunch of mobs around you. They're all hitting you. Pop a reprisal, you'll be good. Arm's length is a knockback. So once I pop it, I can't be knocked back for 6 seconds, but it's also got a great ability where if any mob hits you with arm's length active, they will be slowed for 20% for about 6 seconds. So their attacks, if somebody's swiping you, they'll be 20% more slower on those swipes. Underused ability. People always think arm's length is just for knockback. No, in dungeons, it's a godsend. Shirk, I won't be able to use Shirk, but basically it converts 20% of your aggro to a party member. So what you'll often do is, you will take aggro and the other tank will shirk you, or you will shirk the other tank after they provoke. It basically means you have no issues with aggro, essentially. So let's go to the masteries. So the masteries it will show you what sort of benefits behind the scenes, passives, think of them as passives, what sort of things you get behind the scenes. You could also see this in your own menu, but for example, level 1, you're a tank, so naturally you reduce damage by 20% and you get a bit more HP. At level 35, your next passive is your oath gauge, which is this thing here. This will increase by 5 every time you auto attack. So there, 1 attack 5, 1 attack 100, and then you can spend that on, some sort of ability. At level 58, you get MP back for using Riot Blade and Spirits Within. So that is the second of your combo and your in-between combo. They help give you mana back, which you can in turn use for other abilities. You will have an ability called Rage of Halone. Now look here, level 60, so it's going to take you 60 levels. Your Rage of Halone is going to upgrade to Royal Authority. So you'll have a bit of a separate animation for this, but remember, no matter where that button is, that's going to upgrade via this trait system into Royal Authority. At level 64, half MP for all spells preventing interruptions. More of a quality of life thing, right? Restore HP when using Prominence, which is the second part of the AoE. So it adds, all these traits are doing that, adding a lot of quality of life to stuff as you're going. Extends Sheltron to 6 seconds. Extends Sheltron to Holy Sheltron, that's level 82. Enhanced Intervention, so that increases the buff to 8 seconds, gives you extra stuff like reducing damage, restoring HP. They're just basically passives that you automatically get to your skill. At level 84, you get a heal behind every time you do a Holy Spirit or a Confiteor. So if let's see if it works here. If I do a Holy Spirit, I get 6.1k health back. So you can imagine when you're doing your Holy Circle, the mobs you hit to get that health back is pretty good. Melee Mastery is just general potency increases to stuff, nothing crazy. Spirits Within converts to Expiacion, which I have, at 86. And your final one, at 88, you have a healing effect on Divine Veil. And there we go. There we go, folks. That's Paladin, 1 to 90 with quick explanations. The best way to level up, like with all of these job guides, play it, run around in dungeons, have some fun with it. It does go on to some combo stuff here and Oath Gauge, but what I want to show you now is I want to show you a typical opener rotation. So Paladin has quite a lot of level 90 rotations. I'm going to show you the standard one. Then after that, we'll end out the video. So yeah, let's jump over on into the opener rotation. There we have it, folks. Paladin 1 to 90, example of the skills, how the rotation is going to be at endgame. If you've got any questions about Paladin, throw them into the comments. As usual, if you liked it, sub and like, all that usual stuff. But for now, I am out.